Okay, so this is our last segment. So again, today there's only 3 parts, and so that's our Christmas gift to you is one less. You don't have our final 20-something minute, 15-minute segment. So with that, we're gonna jump into our seriously, guys. If you have, I hate calling it spiritual application. I just can't think of a better word. So email us, geekchurch@gmail.com. A better word that sums up.
Mail us a thesaurus so we can figure this out.
No, don't mail us a thesaurus.
That'd be cool.
I just want to see if someone would be willing.
Like someone actually, they won't even email with like regular stuff, much as a thesaurus. But anyways, okay. For lack of better words, until you guys tell us something better, or the spiritual application part of like
the soul edge of it. Soul edge. You know, like the spirit.
Oh, because it's geeky because of the soul caliber sword. Is it called soul edge?
Yeah, both of them. Soul edge is the evil one.
Okay.
So then we couldn't call it that after all. Anyways.
Okay.
Anyways. Yeah.
So we're talking legacy seemed to be the strongest thing. The whole idea is Bruce Wayne's gone. You know, so do they need Batman? And I'll just kind of set the stage with. The reason Dick Grayson, even though like Tim Drake and even Alfred and stuff was saying you need to become Batman, because and Alfred even made the comment, just because Bruce Wayne is dead doesn't mean that Batman has to be dead. That he, that basically that legacy can live on. Well, Bruce Wayne had in like his little video will and testament kind of thing had told Dick that not to take up the mantle.
It was to Jason.
No, he told it to Jason.
Oh, because he made one.
Yeah, he made
one for each
He told Dick Grayson, who was the most obvious choice at that time to take over the mantle, not because he didn't think he could handle it, but because he said he didn't think, or he thought that
once Batman went away, that
Nightwing and Robin would be able to like handle it on their own. They didn't have to like assume, become Batman. And the thing though, he's wrong. In theory, that's right. That's what, as like a leader, you should do. You should work yourself at a job. When, using the example of like ministry, you should be able to have your position, and you should be able to leave the ministry, and it run fine without you.
And even if you creating successors to the point of you leave, and not only is it perfectly fine plateau, but it expands at an even greater rate because of the way you've imparted yourself into the other.
And for a while there was the whole idea of if you leave and then the ministry falls apart without you, it's because I'm really important, they really need me. But that's just, that whole idea of legacy, and so you get into it, and leadership and legacy and stuff. So Batman was right in theory, but he didn't pull it off. When Batman was gone, they pulled in to kind of help fill the gap, the network. They talked a lot about this network they developed. And we talked about it earlier, all these characters. There was 20 or 30 people who came in to help. And obviously 20, 30 people can be a lot more places and do a lot more than one man. But it wasn't working. The city was way worse off, even with this entire network helping, than just with Batman. They needed
because
Batman.
It came down to the fact that they brought in all these other people, but the fact is, we even mentioned, we don't know who these people are. And people just were not afraid of these people. They didn't have the terror, the shadows, the way they did of Batman, because it left a massive void.
It wasn't really their thing. They were just coming in to fill a temporary void, he didn't really have it set up that way. It was all about him, and everything with him, it all revolved around him. And they were his sidekicks kind of thing. He didn't have it set up really for them to be able to take it on over. And so at the end, Dick Grayson obviously ends up having to become Batman and then have a new Robin. So that whole idea with ministry is that the opposite obviously needs to happen. And I totally spaced on our next transition point to what we were going to say with that.
Yeah. I noticed how, I've read Batman R.I.P., which is the previous one of this.
No, is it though? Because I told you that, but then when I actually I didn't read it all. When I read about it, went through Batman R.I.P.
It had Bruce Wayne in it, and he goes...
Well, I know it had Bruce Wayne, but I think it was a separate thing just about, whatever the villain is, finds out his darkest nightmare, right? It's not, right before it, is it?
I think so, but
because
it shows Nightwing getting taken out something fierce by this guy put in a straitjacket and all this stuff. And then in this, Nightwing gets taken down by Jason Todd 2 times. And I was like...
Taken down?
Yeah, he gets his butt kicked by Jason Todd. when after Daryl tries to save Damien or saves Damien, and
well, he doesn't get his butt kicked. They're in the middle of a fight. He turns and shoots Bruce Wayne's son in the chest.
He was beating him up though, pretty bad.
Well, I don't know, maybe. But anyways, back to the spiritual. What was that? I totally spaced it. What was the next thing we were talking about? The whole legacy, ministry, not fall apart when you leave, which was going to discipleship.
Discipleship.
Which brings us back to that would have been really smooth if we had remembered it and not just fumbled there. But
12 disciples. We were talking about that.
Yeah. You did say that earlier, yeah. The whole idea of in terms of evangelism, a lot of times you go out, you do evangelism or whatever, and you get people to come and then it's like, oh, I'm done, Well, that whole process of discipleship, where evangelism and discipleship are the same thing. They just evolve back and forth into each other.
It's like a wheel.
And so it's you go out and you evangelize, you tell them about Jesus, they get saved, you disciple them, and then they go out and they evangelize, and then they disciple that person, and it goes on and on and on. It's a cycle, which a lot of times that breaks down in a lot of churches. So that's why a lot of times you don't see growth, or you'll see an outreach where, there'll be 1,000 people come, extra, not counting the church people, and 300 people come up and get saved, and then a year later there's 1 or 2 people from that going to the church. And it's well, what happened to all those people? There's not this fall through of discipleship, and we're big on discipleship of how, first off, you need to be discipled. So if you're a new Christian, and you need to be plugged in. You need to be plugged in the church. You need to have a mentor, someone who can something. Whether you be in a class, we're going through a breeding class now. We're doing it to get our minister's license, but in that that's, or some sort of something to be learning the Bible, being taught the Bible, being able to learn off of someone else's life experience. It's that kind of thing. And then not just saying, okay, I'm done. Now I know a bunch of stuff. To go and do the same thing with someone else and building that on. And that's part of that helps with the legacy, because ultimately. When my wife and I decided, when we kind of first started youth ministry, because I'd done media ministry and we'd work, we'd been involved in youth ministry as leadership and junior high pastors and interim youth pastors and stuff. But when we actually kind of started being the full-time youth pastor, well, I shouldn't say full-time because we were part-time, but the official youth pastor, one thing we talked about is not what you can build. Because a lot of pastors will look back to oh, look at this church I built, and or a youth pastor, look at the youth ministry with this. Not the physical stuff we've done, or really even the salvations, because anyone can go out there, any youth pastor, any pastor evangelist can go out there, and do a good presentation and get someone to have an emotional appeal. But we were talking about how many, what was it? How many? What was the wording I said? Not how many just people get saved, but how many ministers are produced? Because that's just really another way of saying discipleship is. People who not only get saved, but then get discipled, and then go out there and start doing ministry as well. So
the best way to compare this, I think, is you could talk about, if you go into the Bible, you have Jesus. He died, came back to life, ascended in heaven, and you can compare him, put him in, plug him in as the role of Batman. He's gone now from the earth, and basically have his group that followed him around, the 11 that were left after Judas kills himself. 11 disciples. If Jesus would have had the same effect on them as he did on Batman had on Nightwing and these,
they would have acted like they did in the first in the Gospels.
Yeah, I mean, they would have been a mess. You would never have seen the book of Acts or Romans or any of these, because of the fact that, they were a mess before Jesus came along. But because of the way Jesus imparted himself into them, they took the message that Jesus had given them and they spread it like wildfire. And even under stuff like persecution, where people were being stoned to death and having their heads cut off and stuff like that for sport, they were still there singing, rejoicing as they were going to their, going to be put to death and stuff. And if it wasn't for, I guess that conviction that Jesus had placed in them, then it wouldn't work.
Yeah, he reproduced himself in them. And in terms of John Maxwell, who is one of the foremost authors and speakers on leadership, it's the difference between addition and multiplication. Mm-hmm. Batman had the principle of addition. He was adding to it. He had Robin, he had Nightwing, and he had this network. He was doing multiplication. He'd have one person come in, and they'd do the results of like that one person. Compared to what he needed, and using the example of Jesus, is it was multiplication. So someone came in, and they didn't just start adding to the ministry. One, they, like you said,
started
he
new
himself.
ministries and stuff.
Yeah, and they were able to catch his vision and replicate that and go off. And then each one of them went out and basically, rather than just adding to Jesus' ministry, took Jesus' ministry, were able to run with it, make it their own, and go with it. And it was multiplication. Mm-hmm. So I guess I could be our leaving part where we've got 4.5 minutes. Is it, if there's anything else?
There's one other point I wanted to mention, and John C. Maxwell.
Or really, because whenever we're done their sodas, we like throw them and like see if we can make them, and they never can see if we make them or not. I really want to throw this, but if I miss, it's gonna explode and get all over Brandy. And then this very well could be my last episode if I did that. So
yeah,
I digress.
You just see blood across the screen, but the one other thing we already mentioned, John C. Maxwell, foremost authority on leadership. One of his like golden rules, I guess you could say, is that you teach what you know, which Batman was very good at. I mean, Nightwing and all these.
Well, even Jason Todd. I mean, he went bad, but he learned a lot, like the technical, stuff.
I mean, they were very good at fighting crime, very good at using all the materials Batman had to his disposal, all the different equipment. The only thing is, he imparted to them pretty much who he was, and the fact that he was very, even when he was a child, because of what happened to him, he was extremely insecure throughout. I mean, you can see he's got the multiple personality disorder, if you want to call it that. I mean, he's very disassociative, had a very small circle, had a lot of just almost very introverted and very divisive. I mean, he ran a lot of people out of the town. He was known for just being very gruff, very difficult to work with, and so of course, because of that, now all the people that he trained became pretty much that exact same way. I mean, they were all very singular, very one-minded, I guess.
Well, except for Dick.
Yeah.
And that's one reason I say he's not like that. He really resisted that the entire time, and I mean, he goes off, he becomes Nightwing. He, back in the day, he's on the Avengers. He's very social. He's very all this kind of stuff. So that's why I don't think everyone's like, oh, he's the most obvious choice. I'm like, no, Tim Drake is.
Yeah, he's completely.
Tim Drake is just like Batman, just like Bruce Wayne. So, with that, I think that about covers it. And this is, I think this is our shortest episode since when we tried to do the half-hour episodes, and we were doing 45-minute episodes. But then there was 2 of them. So let's do half-hour episode, 2 half-hour episodes. We had 2 45-minute episodes. So it just made the show longer. I was looking through the stuff the other day, and remember we talked about that? Oh wait, this great idea, and we'll do the first part will be the review, and the second part will be, and it was like, we did it one time, and it was like, that didn't work.
Yeah, I ended up with an hour-and-a-half episode. It's pretty much.
We're trying to make it shorter for you guys, and it made it longer. So, with that, we Merry Christmas. Okay, so this is 3. When will this be airing? Will this be during Christmas?
9 just aired last week, right? So then 10 would be.
10 will be this Friday. 11 will be next Friday. So yeah, this is going to be right around Christmas. So Merry Christmas. Happy New Year, though. We'll see you again before the New Year.
10 will be next Friday, and then 11 the one after that, so 12 would be the 24th, yeah.
Okay, well, Merry Christmas. If you are watching this, well, then you're freaking amazing, because you're watching this on Christmas Eve.
Literally.
And that's awesome. And if you watch this on Christmas Eve, tell us so we can talk about how cool you are.
Or not cool, depending on your opinion of watching web shows on
I always
Christmas
watch web
Eve.
shows during holidays. My wife. And
I'm the guy that stays up all night and does, I don't know, whatever, on Christmas Eve.
Eating figgy pudding.
What is that?
From the song. Give us some figgy pudding. Okay, obviously he doesn't know. You're getting slapped at by Brandy. We will see you guys next week.
I don't know what that means.
You've never heard the song, and give us some figgy pudding?
It's We Wish You a Merry Christmas. And that's a verse that nobody ever sings.
I don't like Christmas carols.